What's up? Welcome to the Magic Pill Coach Show. I'm Caleb, and Magic Pill Coach Show is about the magic pill. Expect abundance. Okay, so this is a video. The topic of this video is the Great Assumption. What is the Great Assumption? The Great Assumption is that and as I say in my other videos, I'm always pretty much operating from the platform, the of the assumption that we are emotional beings. Uh, Humans are emotional beings, and that what we want most of all is a rich emotional experience. We want, all the things that we go after in the world: relationships, money, wealth, money and wealth, same kind of similar, health, or whatever we're going after physically in the world. We're doing it because we assume that's what creates a good emotional experience. Now that essentially is the great assumption. The outside world thinking that a certain order of things in the outside world is going to translate into a more emotionally rich experience. Um, and it doesn't work that way. It's the great assumption, and out of this uh, mistaken assumption comes a lot of expectations that makes life pretty hard and can make life pretty miserable. Now, at some point, children don't have this expectation. They don't have generally speaking, they don't have emotional expectations um, of the world, or if they do, they're so emotionally resilient that usually they may be mad that you didn't take them to Chuck E. Cheese or Toys R Us, and then they may cry themselves to sleep and completely forget about it the next day. They'll jump out of bed and run into the kitchen just exuberantly enthusiastic about finding a cookie or something like that. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's just abundant emotion, and we become cut off from that when and children have this um, natural understanding and connection to their emotional richness. They have this understanding, sort of how their emotions work, even if they may not be able to articulate it. They don't necessarily have the vocabulary around it, but they are connected to an innate wisdom and to their to rich emotions, a rich emotional experience. Around and around and around, happy, sad, or whatever, and it's rich because you get richness, colors and stuff, colorful. Um, and adults get cut off from that. Our emotional circulation gets cut off so that we can't have rich experience. Our bodies become closed off so that we can't feel, because we're looking for an emotionally rich experience from the world. Um, so children are not looking at it from the world, and we are. Um, you may say, well, yeah, they are, um, but they're not, because they're constantly feeling their emotions that are coming from their thinking, and they could be just excited about, like I just mentioned, a cookie. They could literally be as excited about a cookie as they could about going to Toys R Us or going to Disneyland. Okay, their emotions could be just as high or higher playing with imaginary friends in the backyard versus going to Disneyland. Now, as adults, we're not able to engage in imaginary friends, or necessarily engage and have hugely rich emotions just from eating a cookie. We think that the bigger things in the world translate into stronger, richer emotions. Like Disneyland is such a much more richer emotional experience than the county fair, for example. We just assume those things. And all those assumptions stem out of the great assumption, which is that our emotions come from the world. And actually, the world comes from our emotions. So, um, and so we have these emotional expectations of the world, and that's where a lot of our suffering comes from, because There are no emotions to expect out of the world. There are no emotions out there. We put them out there when we should see that they're inside instead of projecting them out there. So, essentially, for our emotional expectations to dissolve and to be connected to that rich emotional experience that children are, we've got to sort of unassume the great assumption. And I think we do that by looking closer at the world. One way is, there's not really necessarily one way, but obviously unassuming something is very different than trying to change your expectations, because when you're trying to change the expectation, like, no, this is good, when you feel it's bad, trying to tell yourself something is bad, when you keep doing it, you feel it's good, like smoking cigarettes. This is bad, 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 bad. Don't smoke, don't smoke. You've still got the assumption right here. So you're dancing around. You may change your expectation, but you're always going to have to maintain it, and there may always be suffering in that regard because you're still operating on the platform of that assumption, that where the expectation is born. So you may find that expectation being born over and over and over again. Born, 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 reborn, because the assumption is still there. It's still in your brain. It's still in your experience. You're still projecting that emotion out there. Now, when you unassume that, then you sort of fall through to a cleaner, more pure experience of the world, because you're looking at it. You're not assuming it's a certain way. You're asking, what is it? And your looking at the world is more balanced in terms of the temperature of the world is going to be richer. It's not going to be too hot or too cold all the time. The levels and the saturation of everything, the colorfulness is going to be rich and balanced, just because you are connected to pure thought. Now, when you're looking at the world instead of assuming it, the great assumption, our emotions come from out there, but when you actually look at it, you don't see any emotions. If you look closely enough, you see nothing. And you look at the world and you see right through it to consciousness, because there's nothing out there. So you see right through it into consciousness. So that's unassuming the great assumption.